All right, guys, welcome in. Had to try to get this in just before the start of the season. Going to be just going over really quickly um, some info on the rookie receivers, my top 10, and some important stats to know. So, going through it quickly, first, of course, is going to be Marvin Harrison Jr. This should go without saying, but one of the most elite prospects we've seen coming out of college for what he was able to do, especially being double teamed as much as he was, very, very impressive. So, really quick overview. This is new, this upper section. A lot of you guys haven't seen this before. We did a crazy amount of data analysis and came up with an incredible predictive model that on average, just to give a quick overview, I'll be doing a separate video eventually in regards to the model and everything that goes into it. But it's got incredible success rate. So for strong predictions, so anything over an 80% rating or an 8 rating in this case, has a 95 or a 92% chance of accuracy. So anytime you see an 8.2 or anything above an 8 in this section, here's the direct accuracy for that model rating. So an 8.2 indicates from historical analysis that Marvin Harrison has a 92% chance of succeeding in the NFL. And this has been, we charted all the way back to 2016 and tracked every single receiver drafted. And so all of that goes into it. Multiple tests done on the accuracy and everything like that. Now, moving on, post-draft situation grade, this is just a subjective score, but it does take in a couple things into consideration, including their quarterback, target, it's going to take into account target competition, scheme, and a couple other things. But obviously, an A+, incredible situation with Kyler Murray. Great spot to be in for Marvin. He's clearly the top target in that offense. It's an offense that's going to throw the ball a lot, and so he's in a really good situation. Film grade was a 9.3. IP per reception is impact play, and this is outrageous. A 97% is just ridiculous. What an impact play is a first down or a touchdown. So per every single 97% of his receptions were either a first down or a touchdown. Crazy impressive. Moving on to the last signature stat, it's going to be situational impact yards market share. And this is one of the most predictive stats that we have found. So it actually is a lot more predictive than like a dominator rating. But it's similar to that. What a situationally impacted yards market share is essentially it takes into account their yards market share in college for their entire career, but it also takes into account the players that they were in competition with for those yards. So whoever was on their team, how good was that player? It looks at if they were drafted in the first round as well, and it's adjusted based on that. But again, extremely predictive. And so that's those are the signature stats. Obviously for Marvin, pick 104, great draft capital, amazing measurables, great production, great efficiency. Nothing more to say there. The graphs indicate so some 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 of the stats he was at the very top for. In this one, in the circle one, it's looking at touchdowns, essentially per route run. So you have the blue indicating touchdowns, the pink, the amount of routes run, and the yellow giving us that touchdowns per route run rate. Now, having pink below while your blue is as high as his is, again, I can't say enough good things about him. I shouldn't even spend more time on him. You guys already know, elite talent. If I could have him in every league, I would. And then touchdowns per game, first downs per route run. We've already kind of gone over the impact plays per reception. So very important there. Now, moving on, my second overall ranked player. And keep in mind, this is Dynasty ranking. So Rome actually had the highest Oracle rating. Oracle rating is our predictive model name. Now, Oracle rating, again, the higher the number, usually the more, the higher chance they are of succeeding in the NFL. He hits that 80% mark. He hits an 8.4, so 84%. Now his post-draft situation grade, an A-. I think he's in an incredible situation. I just think the only reason we kind of knocked it was the only reason was the target competition he'd have to face in his first few years. Everything else pretty remarkable. You guys can look at this later. I'm going to post a link to the slides so you guys can look at it. I'm going to try to run through it. But great measurables, impeccable production. Not going to spend too much time on these guys. So again, I plan to review and do some additional videos later on, but I only did graphs and charting for 3 of the players, just didn't have enough time to get it all in. But Malik Neighbors is my number 3. I think those 3 guys are in a tier of their own. It's just everything that you look for in a player, their film, their situations, I mean, every predictive metric they hit. I mean, our model loves them. Malik Neighbors is no exception to that. As you see, just everything's pretty much green. Yeah, amazing film, amazing. He actually had the highest situational impacted yards market share. And again, incredible player. For those 3 players, there aren't many flaws. Like, you could nitpick, but there isn't much there. So moving on, like I mentioned, I was only able to really graph and chart the first 3. I have some general ones and some of the ones that I already used on this page. But as you see, we have Brian Thomas and Xavier Worthy at 4 and 5. That's a tier of its own, in my opinion, as well. Xavier Worthy, or starting with Brian Thomas at 4. Now, Brian Thomas, and I'll go on to this one next. Or sorry, no, this one. So Brian Thomas, he definitely, both these players have some red flags, right? So Brian Thomas, kind of not the greatest breakout age, you know, did have some concerns with the amount of routes, or the types of routes he was running in college. It was almost all 9 routes, which still incredible, because as many 9 routes as he ran, his success rate on those routes were still through the roof. It was something like an 87% success rate against man coverage on those routes. So great 40-yard dash, was in the 94th percentile, ran a 4.33. Again, hits that 8 mark for the model. Great post-draft situation, but not necessarily ideal. I do think he has a high chance of succeeding this year. And I do think he is going to be a great football player in the NFL. One predictive stat that I didn't mention, and this stat actually does go into our model, and that's weighted. It's going to be weighted target QBR. So that's the circle graph on the right in teal. That is that shows Brian Thomas having the highest weighted target QBR. Weighted target QBR basically takes into account every single season they had in college, and it basically weighs, instead of averaging out each season, it basically takes each year, basically however many targets they had in a year, that's what that QBR is going to be weighted by. But ultimately, it's just a composite. It's not necessarily, I don't know if weight is even the best word for it, but moving on, Xavier Worthy, his biggest concern is his BMI. I mean, there's definitely some other concerns, and he drops a lot of passes. He has no hands. But no player, no receiver has ever succeeded in the NFL with a BMI as low as his. I'd say that's my biggest concern. I mean, he's a great route runner, doesn't get off man very well, but Andy Reid is going to scheme him up well. He's in such a good situation. The only reason he didn't get an A+ was some minimal target competition. But I think he's in the best situation he could be in for a player like that. Final list, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, or Ricky Pearsall, Ladd McConkey, Keon Coleman, Xavier Legette, Adonai Mitchell. Now, all these guys are going to have blemishes. Ricky Pearsall, I don't think. Now, these, again, are dynasty rankings. The only reason I have Ricky Pearsall at the top of this part is because I do think, dynasty-wise, long-term, he is going to be the best. Awful situation for him right now, but a lot going for him, and a lot going for him in that scheme. Debo is not, I do not see him being on that team next year. Incredible route runner, just a great player overall. Um, Now, as you see with all these players, unlike the previous players, there's so much red. There's a lot of deficiencies, some production issues. Now, with all of these players, I do think a lot of them have a route to success. Keon Coleman and Ladd McConkey might be my least favorite in terms of talent, and just meeting predictive metrics. Although Ladd was very efficient with his touches, Keon, the only reason I have him ranked above Xavier and Adonai is they have some of the best situations you could ask for. They're in a great position to succeed. Um, and I do think all of these guys have a route to success. Adonai Mitchell, one thing of note for him, we talked a little bit about impact play per reception. Adonai Mitchell is one of those anomalies where every single touch, every single reception he had in college was either a first down or a touchdown. The talent is unreal. Whether or not he could put it all together remains to be seen. But that's all we got for today. I'll be back soon with some videos on the data analysis I did. A lot of good stuff in regards to career length analytics, in regards to positional importance and positional value, how long an average career is in terms of production for each position, along with a bunch of other stuff. So tune in. I'll post the link to the slides here in a couple days, but let me know if you guys have any questions, and let's have a fucking good football season.